Have you ever felt that a single sentence could put everything back in its place? There's a kind of wisdom that can calm the mind. These are words that not only motivate, but also organize thoughts, soothe the heart, and bring back a clear vision of things. Today I want to share with you 10 teachings of Epictetus, simple yet profound ideas that can transform a difficult moment into a completely new beginning. Epictetus wasn't born a sage, he began as a slave. And even after enduring very difficult situations, he discovered a truth that many people still haven't grasped. Our minds are the space where we gain or lose our entire lives. Sometimes you don't need more advice, but rather a moment of clarity that awakens you. And these phrases act as mirrors, showing you who you are now and who you can choose to be. So breathe slowly, listen with a calm heart, and let one of these ideas find a place within you. Perhaps it's exactly what your soul has been waiting for. Before we begin, I only ask 2 things. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Now, let's get to the first lesson. Lesson 1. Only when life tests you do you discover what you're made of. Perhaps there is no truer phrase about how human beings function. Pain doesn't destroy you. It only shows what you're made of inside. Criticism doesn't end you. It only reveals the size of your pride. Loss doesn't erase you. It only shows how much you still hold on to things you could never control. Life doesn't create who you are. It only illuminates what was already there. Everything around you can become a mirror or a prison, and you are the one who chooses which one it will be. That's why Epictetus said with such certainty, don't just explain your philosophy, live it. We spend a lot of time talking, making excuses, creating theories, but the true Stoic doesn't discuss virtue. He acts on it. He doesn't shout that he is wise. He proves it in his daily life, even when no one is watching. Epictetus didn't want students who repeated pretty phrases. He wanted people who put ideas into practice. What good is it to talk about freedom if you still obey your impulses? What's the point of saying that the mind is the only place you truly control if you fill it with excuses all the time? Philosophy becomes real when you stop just talking about it and start acting like someone who believes in it. When confusion arises and you don't crumble, when you face your pain head-on and don't try to run away, when you listen to your ego screaming, but still choose what you know is right. Therefore, when life challenges you, imagine yourself as a fighter facing someone as strong as you. The goal is not to defeat that person forever, but to become more skilled with each blow, more attentive with each fall. You can look at pain as defeat, as injustice, or as a sign that it's over. But you can also see it as a classroom where each problem teaches patience, strength, and clarity. Epictetus preferred this second approach. He didn't want you to accept challenges without doing anything, but to learn to work with them. Feeling suffering is part of life, but losing hope is a choice. And the difference between someone strong and someone weak is not in what happens to them, but in what they do with what happens. Nothing great is born without resistance. Fire tests gold, pressure transforms coal into diamonds, and chaos reveals what you hold in your heart. Epictetus said that living is like training on a vast field. Each obstacle is an invitation to strengthen the soul. It's not about breaking the pain, but about learning not to be broken by it. So when fate pushes you, respond with wisdom. Transform each defeat into fuel, each delay into patience, each no into more strength to continue. Don't expect the puzzle of your life to be completed all at once. Be grateful because you are managing to put the pieces in place. Peace doesn't appear when everything is perfect, but when you realize that the very act of assembling your life is the reason for everything. Lesson 2. Be consistent. It's that state where you think one thing, say another, and end up doing something completely different. It's a quiet but very destructive division that breaks trust and fuels insecurity. The soul begins to weaken because the mind stops believing in itself, and the person who was once whole begins to live as if broken into pieces. It's like trying to walk in 2 directions at the same time. The body moves forward, but its center remains still. The person begins to doubt their own strength, not because the world has knocked them down, but because they have let themselves down several times, in small lies, forgotten promises, and truths they chose to hide. Epictetus knew that true peace is born when there is inner unity, when what you think, say, and do come together. This unity creates a tranquil, almost unbreakable force because the mind stops fighting with itself. It's like rowing with the wind pushing the boat. The effort continues, but now there is direction, there is meaning, there is fluidity. Imagine a bow with an arrow. The bow is what you think, the arrow is what you do, and the word is the string that connects the two. If the bow is crooked or the string is loose, the arrow will never hit the target. Life is the same. When there is a difference between what you think, say, and do, nothing moves forward and fear grows. This happens because fear is born from doubt. But when there is consistency, fear loses its power because the soul begins to trust itself. Aristotle said that excellence is not something you do only once, but a habit you create. This is the root of integrity, transforming consistency into a way of life, not just a pretty idea. When your words show your values and your actions confirm your words, the mind calms down, the heart understands the path, and the whole body falls into a natural rhythm. You no longer need to force anything. You become your own path. And the most incredible thing is that this strength can be trained. You start small. You fulfill your promises. You finish what you started. You speak honestly even when it's not comfortable. These gestures seem simple, but they create the foundation of true self-confidence, not the kind that depends on praise, but the kind that springs from the respect you have for yourself. And when that integrity grows, fear doesn't disappear, but it bends, because it cannot overcome a mind aligned with what it believes. If you want to avoid years of confusion, observe whether what you say truly matches what you do. Look for the discrepancy between what you desire and what you actually do, between what you say and what you practice. Each time you connect these dots, life responds with more clarity, more lightness, and more strength. Write in the comments, "Today I choose to live with consistency," because when thought, word, and action become a single movement, fear loses control, and life finally begins to flow. Lesson 3. Inner silence is worth more than any quick answer. There is a type of strength that almost no one trains, but which silently determines the quality of our entire lives. The ability not to react at the same speed as emotion arrives. We are not just talking about being quiet on the outside, but about achieving inner silence, that sacred interval between impulse and action. Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, and Seneca spoke precisely about this invisible space, this centimeter of calm that, when cultivated, prevents small flames from turning into wildfires that burn everything else. The human mind is quick, impulsive, accustomed to interpreting, judging, and responding even before understanding what is really happening. That is why so many things become complicated, because the word came before clarity, because the answer came before awareness, because the ego needed to prove something before reason could breathe. Inner silence is not the absence of thought. It is the presence of consciousness observing what you feel before any emotion takes the wheel of your life. When you can listen to yourself from within, you realize that many of the responses that arise in moments of nervousness, anger, or anxiety are not your own. They are from fear, pride, haste, the desire to win arguments that shouldn't have even started. Almost always, the quick response is the ego's response. The wise response is the one that is born from silence. And that is why so many people regret what they say, because they said what the emotion wanted, not what the soul needed. Think about the times you reacted immediately, a criticism that hurt more than it should have, a snide comment that irritated you, a message you replied to without taking a breath. Now imagine how different things would have been if you had waited a few seconds, if you had allowed your mind to reorganize itself before acting, if you had let silence cleanse the excess. Silence is the filter that separates truth from impulse, what matters from what only hurts, and who you are from who you would be if you let anger decide for you. It is in silence that the mind finds the space to avoid the right fight, and even less the wrong one. Wise people don't think slower. They simply don't let haste decide for them, and that changes everything. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself, "Be slow to react," not because slowness is a virtue, but because emotional speed is the enemy of awareness. When you react too quickly, you act from confusion. When you react calmly, you act from discernment. There is a huge difference between reacting to prove something and responding to preserve your peace. In impulse, you enter the other person's game. In silence, you choose whether that game deserves your energy. Inner silence also protects you from a silent danger, carrying conflicts that don't belong to your story. Many people talk to unload their tensions on whoever is nearby. They attack, provoke, complain, insinuate, not because you did something wrong, but because they can't deal with their own chaos. If you respond quickly, you absorb that chaos as if it were your own. But when you choose inner silence, you create a field of emotional protection. You listen, but you don't take it inside. You observe, but you don't become contaminated. You see the other person's pain, but you don't let it become your pain. This separation is a golden skill. Training inner silence is training freedom. It's deciding that no one has the power to push buttons inside you and make you act against yourself. It's choosing that your responses will be conscious, whole, and aligned with your values. It's understanding that wise people are not those who speak beautifully, but those who know when to be silent when the world demands haste. Silence is where you find yourself again before losing control. It's where you feel your own ground before being swept away by the emotional storm of others. Try practicing this in your next difficult conversation. Before responding, put a small pause between the emotion and the word. Take a deep breath. Observe what is rising in your mind. Where does this impulse come from? Does it represent who you want to be or just what you felt in the first second? If it doesn't represent who you want to be, wait. Let it flow. Let it fall. The best answers are not born in the heat of the moment, but in the clarity that arises when silence distills everything that is not essential. The truth is simple. Inner silence is more valuable than any quick response because it gives you back the power to choose your own attitude. It reminds you that you don't need to engage in petty wars, that you don't need to win pointless arguments, that you don't need to prove anything to those who don't want to understand you. The peace you save in silence is worth more than any impulsive victory. And when you learn to honor that space within yourself, every word you choose to say carries weight, clarity, and truth. If you truly want to master your mind, begin by mastering that invisible space. Because while quick responses return you to the cycle of confusion, inner silence returns you to yourself. Lesson 4. Don't be a slave to your own desires. Epictetus said that freedom doesn't appear when you fulfill every desire, but when you let go of those desires. This is one of the most difficult and at the same time most liberating ideas anyone can learn. We grow up thinking that being free means doing whatever comes to mind, but the truth is quite different. Real freedom begins when you stop being dominated by "I want." Notice how this works within you. When you crave to be understood, praised, or loved exactly the way you love, you end up hurt inside. But when you let go of the desire for approval, what you do begins to stem from honesty, not lack. You act because you believe in what you're doing, not because you're asking for something in return. And that's when a person stops chasing applause and starts truly living in the present moment. Epictetus knew that desire works like a chain that no one sees. The more you feed it, the more trapped you become. Killing one desire gives quick relief, but another soon arises in its place. It's like trying to quench your thirst by drinking salt water. The more you drink, the more deceived and dependent you become. Think of it as a beautiful, shiny cage. On the outside, it looks like freedom, but on the inside, it's a prison. You imagine you're deciding everything on your own, but it's desire that's holding the steering wheel. It is precisely here that Stoicism shows a way out of this trap. Not by trying to please every desire, but by trying to understand where it comes from. Here's a simple exercise, the wish journal. Before going to sleep, write down everything you wanted throughout the day, that someone would talk to you, that someone would compliment you, that someone would understand you. Next to it, write, "This choice was mine." This small act alone shows how much you still depend on what is outside of you, and noticing this is the first step to becoming free. Over time, you will discover something very powerful. The less you need, the more freedom appears within you. Your mind becomes calmer and your heart feels lighter, and your strength begins to come from within, not from what the world can give you, but from what you decide you don't need to live well. True freedom lies not in having everything, but in not being a prisoner of anything. Lesson 5. Master your judgments. What confuses people is not the events themselves, but the ideas they create about those events. This isn't just a nice phrase. It's one of the most profound truths ever spoken about how the mind works. Epictetus understood that pain does not stem from what actually happened, but rather from the way we choose to look at it. This idea was so ahead of its time that, many years later, it became the basis for several branches of modern psychology. He realized, long before current sciences, that any change begins from within, in the way we think, feel, and make sense of the world around us. For him, the mind could be a fertile garden or a dangerous hole. What you put in there grows. What you repeat becomes a habit. Epictetus discovered that human suffering does not come from facts, but from the judgment we make about them. And that's true. Two people can go through the same loss, the same pain, and still react in completely different ways. One crumbles, the other matures. One remains trapped in fear, the other grows stronger. The difference lies not in what happened, but in the story each one chooses to tell herself. The problem is that almost no one pays attention to what they are creating inside their own head. People judge, respond, and live on autopilot, without realizing that much of what hurts is simply the noise of their own repeated beliefs. Epictetus wasn't talking about complicated theories, but about practice, about the courage to look clearly. When you realize you can look at the same situation in a different way, you understand that you too can transform your life. That's true freedom. Choosing what each situation means to you. The mind is like a window. When it's clean, the world seems clear and full of paths. But when it's cluttered with confused thoughts, we begin to believe that the whole world has darkened. And that's how many people live, placing the blame on the outside when in reality the dust is inside. When you learn how to clean that window, everything changes. The challenges are still there, but now you can see where you're going. As William James said, the greatest discovery of his time was realizing that anyone can change their life simply by changing the way they think. Stoic wisdom begins precisely there, when you stop trying to control what happens and start calmly choosing how you will understand each situation. Use this in your routine. In the coming days, observe your thoughts before acting. When something irritates or hurts you, ask yourself, is it the fact that hurts me or the story I'm telling myself about it? This small exercise can save you years of suffering and perhaps even years of therapy. When you learn to look at everything with new eyes, your mind becomes calmer, your heart understands its own path, and even the most difficult choices become less confusing. The mess turns into clarity, and your life starts to follow what really matters again. The strength to live in peace has always been within you. It was just hidden behind a flawed way of seeing things. Write in the comments, "Today I decide to change my interpretation." This is how true freedom begins, not when the world changes, but when you change the way you look at it. Lesson 6. Accept impermanence. Don't expect everything to happen exactly the way you imagine. Instead, learn to want things to come as they truly do, and that's how you find peace. This quote from Epictetus isn't about giving up, but about clarity. It doesn't ask you to stand still and accept everything without thinking, but rather to learn to walk alongside life, not push against it. How many times has something slipped through your fingers? A plan that went wrong, a relationship that ended, an opportunity that vanished, and you thought the world was working against you. But what if, instead of fighting what happens, you treated each problem like a hidden teacher? This is what Stoicism teaches, to see difficulty not as an enemy, but as a guide. The Stoics called this amor fati loving. What happens doesn't mean liking the pain, but recognizing that there's something in it that shapes you from within. Every difficult surprise is an invitation to strengthen the mind. Each loss teaches detachment. Each disappointment opens the door to a broader perspective on life. Epictetus believed that control lies not in the event itself, but in the story you tell about it. Those who choose to follow the rhythm of life discover that peace comes not from controlling the world, but from collaborating with what it offers. What hurts you is not the event itself, but the desire for things to be different. That's why he taught chaos training. Set aside one day a week to do something deliberately uncomfortable. Walk without music. Take a cold shower. Talk to someone you usually avoid. Stay quiet and don't touch your cell phone. Discomfort is not punishment. It's preparation. Those who learn to cope with minor discomforts are able to face great pain without collapsing. Life doesn't protect anyone from chaos, but it strengthens those who train before the storm arrives. Imagine this as a large wave. You can try to stop the water and hurt yourself, or you can learn to slide on top of it and use your strength to your advantage. That's the difference between someone who merely endures and someone who is truly wise. The first one tries to overcome the inevitable by force. The second person learns to move along with the inevitable, because when you stop fighting reality, everything starts to follow the path it's meant to follow. Lesson 7. The mind becomes light when you let go of what is not yours. One of the most silent causes of human suffering is carrying burdens that were never ours. We do this unconsciously, almost reflexively. We take on responsibilities that belong to others, try to control what the world thinks, hold on to guilt we didn't commit, and accumulate expectations that no one asked us to place upon ourselves. Over time, we fill our minds with burdens that have nothing to do with our true path, and this makes us more tired than any physical effort could. Epictetus saw this with absolute clarity. He said that much of our pain stems from confusing what is ours with what belongs to others, and what is within our power with what was never in our hands. And when we confuse these internal boundaries, the mind becomes heavy, slow, noisy, like an overcrowded room where there's no room for anyone else, not even ourselves. Notice how this manifests in everyday life. You carry the worry about other people's future as if it were your duty to solve everything. You try to prevent someone from being sad. You try to be the emotional support for everyone around you. You try to prevent conflicts that didn't start with you. Or even worse, you try to control how people see you. You try to fix what they think. You try to prevent them from judging you, criticizing you, or misinterpreting you. But here is the hard, liberating truth. None of this is in your hands. You can love someone, but you can't decide if that person will mature. You can do your best, but you can't control whether the other person will recognize it. You can be honest, but you can't stop someone from making up stories about you. The mind becomes heavy when it tries to hold on to what belongs to the world, and it becomes light when it lets go. Letting go isn't abandoning, it's putting each responsibility in its proper place. It's understanding that there are 3 types of weight: yours, the other person's, and life's. Yours is everything you can choose: your character, your responses, what you decide to think, the attitude you take, the focus you choose to place on it. The other person's weight consists of emotions, choices, and interpretations that don't originate from you, but from that person's internal history. Life's weight is everything that simply happens. Time changes, cycles end, events arise without warning. The mind suffers when it tries to hold these 3 weights at the same time, like someone trying to carry their own body, plus another person's, plus the weight of a river that never stops flowing. Epictetus said that inner freedom is born when you recognize your limitations not as weakness but as clarity. And this clarity allows you to give back to the world what belongs to the world. The judgment someone makes about you is not yours. It's a projection of that person's mind. The expectation that another person places on you is not yours. It's a reflection of what they would like you to be, not what you truly are. Someone's behavior is not yours. It's a result of that person's character. The unexpected event is not yours. It's a natural movement of life. When you let go of all that, the mind breathes. It deflates. It clears space, like a room that finally has light. Letting go is an act of maturity. It's about stopping placing yourself at the center of everything, as if every problem has to go through your hands. It's recognizing that the world will follow its own rhythm, that everyone has their own time to grow, and that nothing flourishes under external pressure. Letting go is also an act of courage, because often holding on gives a false sense of control. But true control appears when you decide to only take care of what you can truly transform. When you don't try to convince anyone of your worth, when you don't demand that someone understand you, when you don't fight against the nature of things, when you accept that some people won't change, that some cycles need to die, that some connections dissolve because they fulfilled the role they were meant to fulfill. And here's the most beautiful part. When you let go of what isn't yours, you automatically recover what always was. Peace returns to your heart. Clarity returns to your mind. Energy returns to your body. Life begins to make sense again because you're not wasting your strength trying to carry the impossible. You weren't born to hold the world. You were born to hold yourself. That alone is a profound and sufficient task. The rest is borrowed weight. And no mind can be light while supporting what belongs to someone else's path. Let go a little today. Let go of other people's judgment, undue guilt, the weight of the past, the need to please, the expectation that everything will happen your way. Let go not to lose, but to recover what has always been yours. The freedom to live lightly, clearly, and whole inside. Lesson 8. No mind learns behind closed doors. Among all the Stoic thinkers, Epictetus stood out as a true guide, and also as someone who knew how much pride can close doors. In his study space, he received young people from many places, but few arrived truly ready to learn. Many claimed to seek knowledge, but they already showed up full of opinions, wanting to show what they knew, instead of exploring what they didn't yet understand. Epictetus was discouraged by this, because for him, ignorance was not the opposite of knowledge, it was an excess of certainty, and this message remains valid today. We all, at some point, think we know more than we actually do. It's a subtle impulse that makes us judge without understanding, react before listening, speak before reflecting. But those who believe they already know everything end up locking the door to their own progress. And no one grows with the door closed. The mind is like a glass. It only receives new water when it's empty. When the cup is full of opinions, certainties, and vanities, nothing new can enter. That is why humility of mind is one of the strongest qualities that exist. She keeps the glass clean, ready to receive more. No matter how intelligent you are or how much you've achieved, there will always be someone who knows more, has lived longer, or understands more than you. And admitting this doesn't diminish you. On the contrary, it broadens what you can see. Arrogance binds, but curiosity sets free. Those who think they've reached the top should stop climbing. Those who always see themselves as students continue to grow without stopping. Therefore, practice the habit of keeping an open mind. Think about the last movie you saw, the last book you read, or even this video, and write down 2 new things you noticed. You'll notice that learning happens everywhere, in simple conversations, in everyday mistakes, in pauses, and even in the people who annoy you. Those who are attentive learn even when everything around them is quiet. Epictetus said that a wise person is one who continues learning even when they think they already know a lot. And that is the true power, to transform one's own life into a classroom. Accept it now. Write in the comments, "Today I choose to continue learning." Because only those who keep their hearts and minds open discover what the world still has to teach. Lesson 9. Not everything depends on you, and that's where freedom begins. Most of the time we are worried, irritated, and tired because we try to control things that were never within our control. People's opinions, what will happen tomorrow, how others act, the weather, luck, and even death itself. Epictetus was clear. There are things that depend on you and things that do not. Your peace of mind begins the moment you understand this difference. A person's mind begins to suffer when they try to control what cannot be guided. It's like trying to row against a strong river and still thinking it's your fault for not being able to stop the water. The Stoic learns to turn the oar in the right direction. He accepts the river's movement, but is mindful of the force he puts into the oar. And this is where Epictetus distances himself from today's ideas of comfort. He doesn't give you a hug to console you, he gives you courage. While the world tells you to run from pain, Epictetus shows you how to face it head-on. A psychologist can help you understand your wounds, but Epictetus calls you to take responsibility. He says, take care of yourself, your mind, your choices, your responses. Don't expect the world to be fair. Be justice yourself. Don't ask to be loved. Choose to love. Don't try to control everything. Learn to command what's inside you. When the ego complains, saying, I don't deserve this, Epictetus replies, who said you deserve anything? This is the powerful remedy that truly heals from within. True wisdom lies not in making pain disappear, but in knowing what to do with it. Ultimately, freedom isn't about controlling everything around you. Freedom is about not being dominated by what is beyond your control. Imagine this as a shield. Whenever something irritates you, makes you sad, or throws you off balance, ask yourself, is this within my control? If the answer is yes, act. If it's no, let go. This simple act separates chaos from calm. You can spend your whole life fighting things that are beyond your control and still lose every battle. You can try to control your children, change your partner, make your boss understand your ways, or hope that the world will finally recognize your worth. But the more you try to hold on to what cannot be held onto, the more you lose control of yourself. Your mind tires, your body weakens, and your heart fills with sadness. And all this happens because you forget the most important thing. You were not born to control others, but to learn to control yourself. There is another way. You can learn, little by little, to let go of what cannot be changed, to question yourself honestly, to separate what is yours from what belongs to the world. It is at this point that clarity, strength, and the true power to choose are born. Epictetus said that this is the simplest division and, at the same time, the most difficult to live by, but also the one that separates those who live imprisoned by their emotions from those who have inner freedom. You don't need to dominate the world, but you do need to dominate yourself. And when you do that, you'll realize that everything around you begins to follow your balance. That's how peace is built, not by controlling what's outside, but by learning to guide what's inside. Lesson 10. Get out of the shallows and dive into the power of consciousness. We live in a time when everything needs to happen fast. Results, the dream body, success, and even the feeling of being happy. But everything built without a firm foundation crumbles at the first problem. Epictetus understood this very well. He reminded us that nothing truly great is born overnight, and this is one of the most ignored lessons today. Being profound is the exact opposite of being hasty. Haste stays only on the surface, while depth lives in purpose. Those who only seek what's fashionable, what promises quick gains, or what gives immediate returns, end up jumping from one thing to another, like someone digging several shallow holes and never finding water. Many start full of energy, but give up as soon as the first difficulty appears, because they think discomfort is a sign of failure, and thus they lose the strength that comes from persevering. The Stoic does the exact opposite, because he understands that true satisfaction comes from fully immersing oneself in what one is doing. He is not content with just touching the tip. He gives himself entirely, because he knows that deep effort molds character, strengthens the mind, and transforms any task into a virtue. This is how real skills are born, not in a few days, but in many years of patience. Think of a diamond. It started as a simple piece of coal that withstood the pressure, endured the test of time, and didn't break at the first sign of trouble. You are also formed in this way. Each difficulty refines you. Each mistake takes away a little piece of what prevents you from becoming who you can be. We live surrounded by shortcuts, but the path to depth doesn't run out. It demands total attention. And when you practice this presence, something valuable appears: meaning. You stop seeking only results and begin to pursue excellence, the joy of doing something very well, even when no one is watching. So here's your challenge. Choose a part of your life and decide to delve into it. Study more than just the basics. Train even when you lack the motivation. Stay strong when everyone around you gives up. Push your mind and heart a little beyond what's comfortable. The deep path always holds treasures for those who have the courage to go beyond the surface. Lesson 11. Be a free man. Govern your own mind. We live thinking we're in control, but almost everyone is imprisoned by something. It could be our cell phone, sugar, confusion, the past, or the opinions of others. We call freedom the ability to do what we want, but that's often just another way of hiding the fact that we're dependent. Epictetus had a physical prison, but his mind was entirely his own, and therefore no one could take away his true freedom. He understood that the worst kind of prison doesn't have metal chains. It appears in our habits, in our quirks, and in the impulses that control our actions without us realizing it. How many times have you said, just 5 more minutes, just one more bite, just one more look at my phone, and ended up doing exactly what you promised to stop? Every time you give in, your inner strength weakens a little, and the more you surrender, the further you get from who you want to be. Today's slavery is hidden. No one forces us. It's born from comfort, grows with distractions, and is maintained by the fear of being alone. But there is a way out, and it begins the moment you decide to take back control. To be free is to be able to say no to yourself and follow through. It's to be in charge of your own time, your own desires, and even your own silence. So think calmly. What's holding you back today? Choose just one thing and set a limit on it. If it's food, try going without it for a while. If it's your cell phone, leave it alone for a few hours. If it's anger, practice staying quiet. These small gestures are like lessons in freedom. Every time you take control of yourself, your mind becomes stronger, because the power of self-control is one of the rarest strengths that exist. Epictetus said that a truly free person is one who can choose how they react, and that's something no one can take away. So choose to be your own master. Because freedom isn't about doing everything you want, but about not being controlled by anything, neither by others nor by your own habits. Lesson 12. Life weighs less on the right side. Epictetus explained that everything that happens in life comes with two ways of holding on. One that helps you keep going and another that, if you choose, drags you down. This is one of the most important images of Stoicism because it shows the heart of inner choice. You don't decide the size of the problem that appears, but you can decide how you will deal with it. Think of something that hurt you. Everything has two sides. Pain can become a lesson or just anger. Loss can open paths or lock you in. Criticism can be an attack or a chance to practice calmness. The difference is never in the event itself, but in the way it's handled, in the interpretation, in the attention given to the weight. A disorganized mind always grabs the wrong handle, complains, fights against everything, falls into the "why is this happening to me" trap. But a clear mind does the opposite. It observes, breathes, and realizes that life didn't come to knock you down, but to teach you. And when that calm demeanor becomes a habit, everything around seems different. The same challenges remain, but they weigh less because your way of handling them has changed. Epictetus said that the wise person always chooses the handle of reason. They don't run from the problem, but they also don't panic. They accept what comes, but they don't let it dominate them. That's the difference between living as someone who suffers from everything and living as someone who commands themselves. True strength doesn't appear when you remove the weight, but when you learn to bear the inevitable with firmness. So when something weighs you down, don't try to figure out why this happened, but rather, what this wants to teach me. This small change transforms weight into power, because nothing in life has the same weight for everyone. The weight changes according to the mind that holds it. And when this understanding grows, you become resilient, not because everything has become easy, but because you have become stronger. Every time you choose the right handle, you conquer a piece of destiny without anyone seeing. Write in the comments, "Today I choose to hold life by the right handle," because freedom isn't about living without burdens. It's about knowing how to handle what's inevitable without losing your peace of mind. Choose one of the phrases, just one. Turn that phrase into your shield, your weapon, and your daily foundation. Repeat it when you think about giving up, when fear grips you, when the world seems harsh. Use this phrase as training for your mind, because when life challenges you, and it won't be luck that answers. It will be what you've built inside, the structure of your mind, the peace you've cultivated in silence, the clarity you've held on to even on difficult days. And it is this inner strength, created by discipline and self-control, that keeps you strong and helps you continue. If this content resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching.